If you are a fan of the Iron Man, you must be a fan of the Elon Musk as well, since he is the real life Tony Stark. He might not have the Iron Man costume, but has the rockets that he frequently spends to space. What we all can agree is that Elon Musk is one of the most productive people on the face on the earth. You might have a different opinion of him, and you might not agree with everything that he says, but running multiple multi-billion dollars companies requires an unbelievable amount of the discipline and the price planning. To be honest, it's difficult to believe that one person can achieve so much in such a little time. We all have heard stories of the great business leaders but to be so effective that you are revolutionize multiple industries at the same time is insane. Just so that there hasn't been the new auto manufacturers. It's over the 100 years in America because the industry is too competitive. And here comes guy who not only enters into the industry but build the most valuable auto company in the entire nations. If we keep talking about the achievements, I'm afraid that this video won't end by any time soon. So that's where we'll leave that for another time. But what we are going to do is to find out why Elon Musk is so productive, how exactly he gets so much done in such a little time. Musk has been in the spotlight for the 2 decades already, and he has given quite a good number of the investors interviews. In fact, there is a great book written on his life by Ashley Vance. He has explained multiple times on the why he's so productive and gets into much time. So we are going to take his 5 most important principles that he integrates into his life that keeps him insanely productive. Start with the most important work. I think the number one productively hacks is to start with the most important tasks of the day. I know that sounds simple and doesn't sound like anything revolutionary, but most of us tend to start with something easy. You just had enough sleep, your mind is still clear, fresh, and sharp, your ability to focus is at maximum level. This is when you have to do the hardest work on your to-do list, because later on the day your willpower, energy, and focus will drop, and you will procrastinate on the difficult task. You can't accomplish everything in a single day. You just have 24 hours out of 8 you sleep, 4 or 5 spent on your necessities like the eating, going to the bathrooms, getting stuck in the traffic, dressing, and you are left with around 11 hours of we are going to be honest with each other, as most people can't work for 11 straight hours. You still have time to meet your friends and socialize, spend the time with your family, watch the latest episode of your favorite show on Netflix, so you're left with 6 to 7 hours that you can actually put into the real work. Make sure you use them when you are in your highest level of the willpower to get the best out of them. Secondly, constantly ask how you could be doing things better. In one of his interviews, Musk said, I think it's very important to have the feedback loops. Where you're constantly thinking about what would done and how you could be doing it better. I think that's the single best piece of the advice. Constantly think about how you could be doing things better, the questions yourself. Musk always practice what he pressures. Every businesses he launched was as a result of him questions if he is the better way to do that. Cars were polluting the climate and causing climate change, which is an external threat to humanity. So he asked himself, how can we have cars without polluting the climate bomb your electric cars. On the beautiful evenings, he was driving back home from one of his office. As usual, he was stuck in the traffic. It was boring and frustrating, so the idea to put into his mind, is there is better way I can get back home from the office without getting stuck in this traffic. That's how the boring company was born. It's just a tunnel underground to reduce the traffic. No matter what you are doing, if you approach your work with the perspective of always finding a better way to do it. You will always be productive. Third, first principle. But the problem is that how do you always find the better way to improve? How do you constantly find innovative ways to move forward? Well, Elon Musk uses and in interesting method to do that. In one of his interview, Musk said, "I tend to approach things from the physics framework. Physics teaches you the reasons from the first principle rather than by the analogy. Thinking by the analogy is how we think most of the time. It's like comparing to two objectives or trying to build something better out of what we already exists. There is nothing wrong with that, and it's useful in a lot of the cases. But sometimes things are wrong in their core, and to solve them, to have to get there, and that's what the first principles is. The first principles is the strategy to break down complicated problems to generate original solutions. There is how thinking from the first principle of led Musk to start SpaceX. After visiting several aerospace manufacturers around the world, Musk discovered the cost of the purchase in a rocket was astronomical, up to 65 millions. So he wanted to find out if he could reduce the numbers. Let's look at the first principles. What the rocket made of? Aerospace grade aluminum alloys plus some titanium, copper, and carbon fiber. Then I asked what the value of those materials on the commodity market. It turned out that the materials cost of the rocket was around 2% of the typical price. Instead of buying the finished rocket for over $60 million, Musk decided to purchase the raw material for cheap and build the rocket himself, which is the SpaceX was born. 4. Avoid pointless conversations. Nothing wastes more time than the useless conversations. You are busy working and focused on your most important task on the day, but then suddenly your old friend or girlfriend or your relative whom you haven't met for the years calls you, and that's the end of your productive day because the conversations last ages. Or sometimes you call your colleagues for one thing, but then end up discussing how you had horrible argument with your spouse last night. That's why Sma's favorite method of the communication is email. He even once said, "I do love email. Whatever possible, I try to communicate any crossly. I am really good at email." In fact, he even avoids meeting at all cons because usually they are a waste of the time. He even considering it's disrespectful to stay in the meeting if you aren't adding any value. Meeting and conversations should be short, straight, and to the point. Fifth, and finally, Musk's precisely shadows his time. You can't come up with a better plan every morning. Every now and then you have to think about how you spend your days. But most importantly, stick to the shadow that works for you. And Musk is a perfect example of that. He strictly sticks to his weekly shadows. Wakes up every precisely at 7 a.m. after getting almost 6 hours of sleep and showers first things in the morning. He once wrote on Reddit that I had to greater positive impact on him than any of his other daily habits. He breaks his time into the series of the 5 time slots to be as effective as possible. He spends Mondays to Fridays at SpaceX in Los Angeles. On Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday, he went to Bay Area to work at Tesla. He usually spends about half of the day working on the artificial intelligent non-point open AI, and Saturday he entire works at the SpaceX or spends his time with his children, but still multitasks. And he once said, "What I find is I'm able to be with them and still be on email. I can be with them and still be working at the same time. If I didn't, I wouldn't be able to get my job done. Life might get boring by the sticking into the shadows, but it makes you way more productive. As I used to reaching how Elon Musk managed to be so productive, I came across the multiple things. I even read his autobiography again by Ashwood ends. These principles might not perfectly work for you because you are in the different line of work, but if you constantly look for the better ways to get more done, you will eventually achieve it. Remember, life is a journey where we constantly keep growing. Thanks for watching, and until next time. So hit that subscribe button, give this video a thumbs up, and let me know in the comments below on how to stay productive.